Hi everybody.
Hello everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We hope you can see us clearly and we hope you can hear us clearly, and we hope you enjoyed your music. From the beginning you would have been able to see some of our wetland, the view that we look out to, the wetland that, thanks to the viewers and the petition that was signed, we hopefully have saved. And also in the distance, our lovely Magaliesberg mountain range, which was one of the reasons that we selected this property to start with. We'll start by giving you a brief summary of the events that took place this year, comparisons with last year, how different they were. We will answer some of the questions, the flood of questions we received on the blog and via email. And then a little discussion on the wetland, and then we'll sign off.
Alright, the summary of this season, it's been filled with headache and heartache and wondrous things. This is the fourth season now that the owls have nested here in our pot plant. We've had a lot of new viewers from this year. And they've been wondering what is the difference between this season, last season, and the first season that we had with the chicks. Brief summary, the first egg was laid on the 31st of August. Mama actually came and sat in the nest, pot plant owl, on the 30th of August. Merlin was the first one that was hatched, and he hatched on the 3rd of October. Timka hatched on the 4th of October. Now, the first big difference that we've had this year is for the first time 3 eggs were laid as normal, but only 2 hatched. And I don't know if you can remember the days when we watched Mama and she was sitting and she was shuffling the egg between her legs and looking down at this egg like that and wondering what she was doing wrong or what may have happened. Even though we phoned Freebie and initially they said to us, please don't do anything, just let the egg be. We took a decision to actually remove it after I felt that she was just getting a little bit concerned, a little bit confused, and in my opinion, a little bit stressed. So we did move little Shelly out. Shelly was the name that a lot of the chatters on the blog, on the Ustream site, named the unhatched egg. And we buried Shelly, so a tribute to Shelly now. And I don't think that the egg was ever fertile, and that was probably the reason why it never hatched, because as we know later on in the season, pot plant owl made her way to the vet, got checked out, and she was absolutely healthy. And I think if she had not been healthy, perhaps that might have been the reason for the 3rd egg not hatching. So, then we had very exciting things. We had Merlin taking its first flight. If you can see behind us there, we've got the pilot's wall, which we've nicknamed the pilot's wall. The pilot's wall basically sits between the balcony, which is the first floor that we're on now, and the patio below. And then there's a little wall that is suspended on the uncovered portion of the patio. And we have had in the first year of nesting, we did have both chicks make it onto the pilot's wall and run up and down and flap their wings and use it almost like a runway to see if they could get airborne. Merlin did that absolutely brilliantly. Merlin was 1 minute running along, going up and down, and the next minute just took off in flight straight across the garden, and it was just absolutely fantastic to see. Timka's first big flight. Timka did quite a few little flights, obviously on the balcony, going down to the pilot's wall, running up and down, flying from one end of the wall to the other end of the wall, and then flying down into the garden. But the first big flight for Timka came when Timka was down on one of our garden walls below, and if you were here earlier on, the camera was facing the wetland, you would have actually seen that dividing wall between the two properties, and that's where Timka spent a lot of time. And Timke's first very big flight was flying from there all the way up to the rooftop. And unfortunately, that was the last time that we saw Timke in our garden. The owls both fledged on the 25th of November, the day after Thanksgiving, for the American viewers. And it was a very bittersweet moment for us, very sad as normal, very glad that both of them made it, very proud of Timke and the way it flew the previous night. And yeah, that's the brief summary of the timeline of events. And now we're just going to go through, we need to run through a few thanks to people, to really heartfelt. We couldn't have done it without so many people. So I'll let Alan start on the list and then I'll continue.
Well, the first people we have to thank are Africam. I'm sure you're aware that this camera is an expensive piece of equipment. We have a very fancy infrared nightlight, very powerful infrared nightlight, an exceptionally strong parabolic microphone that literally picks up the neighbors chatting on their patio. We do try and tilt it away from our bedroom so that you hear as little of us talking inside our house as possible, and that of course deflects the sound down the road and to all of our neighbors. But a very big thank you to Africam for the hard work that they have had to put in. Every time the webcam goes down, we run and reboot everything on our side, and if it still isn't up, we have to send them SMSs. They've got Africams or cameras around southern Africa, including down on the coast where they listen to the whales singing, and they have to then pull out their pieces of equipment to try and sort out why the camera is down. It's not something we can answer. We do suspect that it's to do with the telephone lines getting rebooted at the telephone company's head office, and then all of the computers along the line have to try and follow that rebooting sequence. So we do apologize for the cameras going down, but I'm sure you're aware it's totally out of our control. Thank you to Africam.
Next huge big thanks must go to all of the mods on the chat sites, in no particular order, and if I forget anyone, I've tried to keep a little list here, but you know, I have been a bit distracted in the last 24 hours. But thank you to HEF, thank you to CAB, thank you to GSO, thank you to Expat, thank you to KB, and honestly, without the moderators on the site, the information that I give when I come in, and I might only be there for half an hour, wouldn't get passed on to the rest of you. In addition, they provide the facility to answer the questions. When I'm not there, if the camera goes down, they're the ones that will then contact Ustream or will try and contact Africam. So they play a really vital role. I really am honestly so grateful for them. And just to let them know that there is a tiny little parcel winging its way to them in the post. It might take a little bit longer than normal because we are flying across the seas to America from South Africa. But that's from us, and thank you very, very much.
To the chat stream, thank you to everyone that participates in the chat stream. We do appreciate it. We like receiving input from all around the world. We like to hear different stories and different theories. We are not owl experts. We are observers of owls, and we do appreciate getting questions that we haven't thought about, and we can then go back and try and find some research and come back with answers at a later stage. But thank you to everybody for participating in the chat room. Thank you to Tracy for all of her hours on the chat room. She does love it.
Fun. It was fun and I love it. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody.
Next big shout out must go to Bob and the Owls. Bob, you're from, well, you know who you are. You're at Ustream. Bob has been absolutely incredible the past couple of weeks. What he did is he set up a Google Earth map to try and pinpoint all the pot plant owl fans around the world. And it takes a very, very long time. It is very labor intensive. And Bob, I'm sure, is a little bit like Alan, where he probably types a little bit like that instead of the 90 or 100 words a minute. And Bob, I love you saying that. I mean it in the nicest possible way. It will just take a very, very long time, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much to people that have already put their names on the list. We have to really try and get away where going forward, I'm sure there will still be people now listening to this and watching this who will want to put their name on the list, but we can't get Bob to continue doing that. So we'll have to find a way of being able to add individual names themselves. But a huge big thank you to Bob. We really, really appreciate it. Another big thank you must go to Track and to Emmy. Again, from the chat, they have been absolutely instrumental in the most amazing footage of Pot Plant Owl and Popper and Merlin and Timka on video. They've made songs. They've done a timeline of how the chicks have grown up. They've recorded the most amazing things, which actually Alan and I have never had the facility to do. You know, in the first year that the owls nested with us, it was literally just Alan and I with a little camera lens and Alan behind it, with me and a little piece of paper and a pen, writing everything down. And because we slept, obviously, in the evenings, we lost a lot of what you in America and Canada see. When you're awake, we don't see that. So it's been really nice to actually go back on all of the videos and all of the things that we're missing at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. The amount that the owl chicks eat, and you know what they bring in, how the parents interact with them at night when we're sleeping. That's been amazing. So thank you very much for that. And also, incidentally, I know there are lots of other people that have posted incredible photographs or video clips, and I do want to say thank you to them. I just don't know all of your names. I really honestly cannot list them all, but I know that there have been people that have been instrumental on Facebook, the Pot Plant Owl Facebook site, and they have been posting regularly there, and I thank you, each and every one of you. Also on the blog, there have been comments and posts made there, and again on the chat. So thanks very much. You know who you are. All right, and the final thanks must go out to all of the Pot Plant Owl viewers and the well-wishers. We've just had an absolute flood of emails and Facebook messages just to say thank you to us for doing absolutely nothing other than just allowing owls to nest in our pot plant on the balcony. But thank you. Without you, Pot Plant Owl wouldn't have had the support in the media to be able to fight to save the wetland as we're doing at the moment. So thank you.
Some of the artifacts we have on our desk here, the infamous shoe that is pitted with bite marks from little chicks. Now that our balcony is returned to us, we can start having a look around. Tons of little skeletons, little heads and odds and ends. We have a 6-pack of South African Brewery's finest. For those of you who aren't aware, our day job, we are in the travel industry, and we arrange specialist wildlife safaris. Into Africa, at a travel industry Christmas lunch, we were fortunate enough to win a year's supply of South African breweries' products. I'm not sure if it's going to take us all year to consume. I'm sure we'll be able to do a lot better than that. But thank you to South African breweries for our next couple of months' worth of fine beverages. Then moving on to just differences between this season and previous seasons. I want to make clear from the beginning that we are not our experts. We are observers. Fortunately, we work from home, so we are able to spend a lot of time observing, probably more time than a lot of our researchers. Also bearing in mind that this is our 4th year of researching, and very few researchers actually get to spend 4 years continuously studying a breeding cycle of one particular species of owl. So we probably do see a lot of things that don't have answers for. We are going to try and get hold of research papers and try to learn some more. But yeah, there are a lot of things that are being cropped up here I haven't got answers to at this stage. One of those would be why the egg didn't hatch. My personal observations, the first year that PPO nested, she laid an egg and then she left it. And she didn't come back for probably 3 days, and then she laid her second egg. And then she left it. And only once all 3 eggs were laid did she start sitting on the eggs properly. This year she seemed to be sitting pretty much from the beginning. She would and then the second egg, and she would sit on it and leave. Just perhaps that egg that was laid first was being disrupted in its incubation, sitting warm, hot, cold, I don't know. It's a theory I'm throwing out there. But that's definitely one of the major differences that has occurred. Then we reiterate this with owls. And it is not for us to interfere unless we believe something is life-threatening, and only then do we step in. When PPO started coughing, it was there was concern amongst a lot of viewers, a lot of people asking us to do something. We don't step in unnecessary. We really watched her for a long time, and when it didn't go away, we took a video clipping to our specialist bird vet, Dr. Brett Russell, who works pro bono on indigenous bird cases, so thank you to Brett Russell out there. And then he listened and he watched this video and he said, no, you really need to bring her in. He doesn't know what it is. It really needs to be checked out, bearing in mind that once she leaves the nest, we are unable then to monitor her. So the only chance of taking her in for examination is now during the breeding season. So I'll let Tracy describe to those of you who didn't see the event, the taking of PPO to Dr. Brett Russell.
Picture the scene, 9 November, hot African sun on the balcony, and pot plant owl sitting in the far pot plant, which is straight there, the 2 chicks sitting behind there, Merlin and Simca, and Papa on a tree nearby. And the night before, I had been going to the window, which is right near the camp, and saying to Mommy very nicely to her, we are going to take her to the vet. It's just going to be a little check, and I'll bring you straight back. And I know that she knew what I meant, because the next day, Nikki from Freeme arrived with 3 nets, and she was ready to catch Mama. And you can see that pot plant owl, Mama, is not happy. She was a little bit edgy. She was a little bit weary. And we, from below us now on the balcony, there is a braai, a barbecue area that's built in, which people can stand on, and you get better access up to the balcony. And the first thought was trying to get one of these nets with Nikki standing on the braai area and throwing it up and over the pot and capturing her in that. And before Nikki even put her foot onto the braai area, Papa and Al knew immediately, and she flew away to Timka's wall, the same wall that you saw dividing the two complexes the two houses when the camera was turned just now. And she remained there. And Nikki then came up here onto the balcony, standing there waving a net and calling her. I had to come out as well, and I had to be used as bait and start edging my way towards the chicks and getting closer and closer and putting my hands there, not touching them, but if this was the nest and they were in it here, my hands were going like that as bait. And I was looking at Mama going, come on, I'm going to touch you. I'm going to touch your chicks. Come, come, come. And she was standing on the wall but not moving, because she knew that the minute she came through here, she'd be in trouble. And she stood at the wall, but you could see she was getting angry. She was stepping like this, and she was fluffing out, and she was just getting that really cross look. And I was baiting her, and I was just about touching her chicks, going, come on, come on, come on. Eventually, she just couldn't take it any longer, and she flew straight, and Nikki quickly caught her in the net. And we took her to the vet. I took her to the vet. Nikki had brought from Free Me a special wildlife capturing box. So in Papa and Al went, and she was not happy. She was not happy at all. She didn't try and push up or attack the box. She just was quiet there, and every once in a while you would just hear a slight flap, but not anything serious. Got to the vet, and in true Papa and Al style, she doesn't make it easy. Brett lets her out the box, and immediately Papa and Al takes off around the room, and it's him and I now trying to catch her, and of course she's not ready to be caught at all. Eventually Brett had to catch her, and he asked me to hold in between her feet and grab her legs just to keep her talons out of the way of being able to attack him. So I held her like that, and then he checked everything. Then she took her to x-rays and came back with results, and the results were fine. So we came and we released her back, and everyone in the chat speaks about the look that she gave me. We put the box on this table, which was a little bit further back, and I opened the door, and Papa now flew to this pillar here. She just shot me a filthy look. She like, how dare you do that? And then she took off. And it was a good couple of hours before she eventually came back, and she started feeding her chicks, and as normal it was fine. It was very worrying. It was worrying to us because of trike especially, which is a disease that is passed to doves, to owls by doves, by eating doves. And unfortunately this season we have seen that the owls family have eaten a lot of birds, and that's probably been due to the lateness in our rains falling. And trike, what it does is it forms these lesions in their throat area, and eventually they can't swallow, and they get so thirsty that they try to go down to water, and they try and drink water, and they've been known to stand in the shallow end of a swimming pool just to try and get water, and they actually die if not treated a horrible, painful death. So that was the biggest concern that we had, Ellen and I and the vet, and what prompted us to take Papa and Al to the vet. So that was a very big difference, but thankfully she's got a full clean bill of health, and for our efforts this season, I got hit on the head twice, and Ellen never got hit. So yeah, thanks very much, Papa and Al. Thank you, Papa. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
On a more humorous side, the two chicks this year were in the habit of sitting on the pillar next to their nest in the early morning in the sunlight, and for me it was too much of a temptation not to take a photograph of them in the morning sun. So I pulled out an 8-foot step ladder and promptly sat on top of the 8-foot step ladder taking photographs. Unfortunately, the ladder wasn't on stable ground, and some of the viewers were fortunate enough to watch me fall off the step ladder. The camera and I both survived.
That was very funny. I was washing dishes at the time, and all I heard was this big thud downstairs, and I rushed outside to Ellen. Ellen, are you okay? Are you okay? And there he is cradling this camera, and he's up like that with his legs in the air. As long as he's got the camera, I said, "You're right. Is the camera okay?" And he said, "No, the camera's fine." And we didn't realize until I went onto the chat, I think it was later that evening, when viewers were actually asking Ellen if he got hurt. And I think it's very funny. So well done, Ellen, for providing the comedy. This season. The other big difference this season, which again was a really nice one, was when Merlin got stuck between two electric fences. We have electric fences in South Africa on walls, and that's to prevent burglars coming in. And we have a big electric fence around our complex, and right next door there's another complex, and they have an electric fence. So Merlin was literally on a wall between the two electric fences, and the poor chick, I don't know how it managed to get in there, but it couldn't get out. So what we did is we went under the umbrella, and we took a chair, a garden chair, and we went into the neighbor's garden, which borders the next complex. And I stood on the tray, and I tried to get Merlin between the electric fences, but obviously I can't touch two strands, otherwise I'm going to get electrocuted. So I was trying to reach from below, and even just reaching from below, the current is quite strong on just the one. And the Merlin was moving back like that, and obviously standing with his wings out and snapping its beak, and it was, trying to look very aggressive and be able to protect itself. And in me trying to reach forward, I didn't want to do a quick grab because of hurting him or electrocuting Merlin. So I went in slowly, and the poor chick lost its balance and fell into the complex next door, which then led to a comedy of errors, because for the next 2.5 hours after that, we had to try and get Merlin from the complex next door, which is completely closed up. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's no intercom. To try and buzz somebody to get in. We don't know anybody that lives in that complex, so we can't phone them and say, "Please, will you open up your gate?" And of course we can't climb over the gate because it's got electric fencing all around. So we had to sit 5 o'clock in the morning on the side of the road and literally wait until the first car came out. And when the first car came out, we rushed in, explained the story, and eventually found Merlin and brought it back. So that is those are the times that we will interfere. If, in the first year we had one of the chicks fall off the balcony pillar, and it wasn't ready to fledge at all. It hadn't even started flapping really or flying on the balcony. And I ended up finding it under a wheel of the neighbor's car. And I picked it up and I brought it back to the nest. And 10 minutes later, the neighbor got into it, his car, and sped off. And if we hadn't picked the chick up, it would have been dead. A lot of people say to us, even what we do, like taking Poplar now to the vet, or like getting a chick from under the wheel of a car or from between electric fences, that's interfering too much. And in our opinion, no, it's not. The reason being is because these owls, unfortunately, have been forced to nest in urban environments. And urban environments are not natural to them. Electric fences are not natural to them. Cars are not natural to them. And if we just say, oh, well, fine, we're just going to watch an owl pushing itself against an electric fence and getting electrocuted, I couldn't live with myself. So if there are any people that would criticize that decision, that's fine. Each to his own. It's something that Alan and I do feel strongly about. We will protect them if we have to. But when Timka couldn't get back up on the balcony, so be it. That is nature, and Timka had to learn to be able to fly up. Question time. All right. I'm just going to run through a few questions, otherwise we're going to be here until midnight, and I'm quite tired. As you know, the chatters know, Alan and I ran a 32-kilometer race this morning, and it went pear-shaped. All I can tell you is that it was a very long day, very hot day, very hilly day, and a day we're just going to be glad to see the end of, because it wasn't a pretty run. Anyway, questions. Okay, first question is from Laurie. What will each of us miss the most about this particular pair of owlets, Merlin and Sweet Timka?
We miss them all. I think we miss them all. We grow very attached to them when they're with us here. We love the calling. We love the activity on the balcony. We love sitting downstairs watching them flying. So every year we appreciate them when they are here, and we miss them when they depart.
I would say my answer to that one would be I miss Timka's raucous hissing. Merlin was less greedy with food, I think, and that was particularly endearing with little Timka. Merlin, I will miss the mischievous Merlin. The one that, when it took its long flight and ended up in the garden the next morning, walked along the garden like an ostrich. And if anyone wants to go and have a look at what that picture looks like, we do have it on the online shop, and it's actually really funny. His little legs, or its little legs, are very long and fluffy, and it's walking like that. So that's the image that, to me, resonates when I think of Merlin. Okay, next question. Alice, where do the chicks go from here?
We don't know. Unless we were to tag them with a radio tracking device, there is no way of knowing. We have thought about ringing them.
Banding for the North American side?
Then the only way we would know is if something bad was to happen to them, people would phone up and say that the ring was found in this area. What they have to do from here now is go, they will firstly spend the next couple of months with their parents until they are full grown and they are hunting totally proficiently on their own. Then they will move off. There are other owl territories. They will be tolerated in another territory because they are still young and immature. We suspect from our observations that it probably takes them about 4 years before they are able to breed. Possibly 3 years from now they will be looking for a territory. And once they become adult and territorial, they will have to find a territory that is unoccupied. We are fortunate here in South Africa. Not more than 20 kilometers as the crow flies. we have got wildlife reserves. We've got lovely mountain ranges. If you travel further, not much further, we have got a lot of open wildlife areas. We hope that they will be finding an open territory in a natural game reserve away from human habitation.
Next question, Gail. Did the vet weigh PPO when we took her to the vet? How heavy is she? How tall is she? I don't recall Brett having actually weighed her. I do know that she's very, very light. She will weigh under 1 kilogram, probably 800 or 900 grams. The male Papa is smaller and he will weigh less, about 700 grams. How tall is she?
I'm trying to remember from the books. I think the book says 60, 65 centimeters.
Yeah.
So about like that when she's sitting up.
She's actually, when you see her having been caught, Nikki from Free Me held her like that and allowed me just to touch her feathers very quickly. And she looks really, really tiny. And when I picked up Merlin, for example, Merlin, the whole chest bone of Merlin was very prominent, and it was just light as a feather. It couldn't have weighed more than maybe 300 or 400 grams. It was very, very light. So they actually look a lot bigger, especially Mama. She looks a very healthy bird. All right, next question. Is it true that you should not shine a light in owls' eyes? Explain the type of light that we use.
Yes, you should. Shouldn't shine a white light in any wild animal's eyes. It does disturb their light vision. They are particularly they have a particularly strong night vision, and it won't do them any good. What we have got here is an infrared LED. When we sit on the balcony, there is no light shining. You won't see us with any red on us or any light on us. For our eyes, we cannot see a thing. It is totally pitch dark, but the camera can pick it up. It is sufficient for a camera, but it is not detectable by human or wildlife eyes.
Caroline, at what point do PPO and Papa come back? Is it just at nesting time?
No, they like to keep an eye on their territory. This is their balcony, and every now and again they will come past and we'll hear them hooting, and they're just making sure that the territory is not occupied by anybody else. Once we get closer to probably June, July, they start getting more territorial, and we'll see a lot of them. But February, March, April, I would expect they will come past you twice a month just to say hello and see that we've left their pot here.
When Alan, just to clarify, when Alan says come past here twice a month, he means actually physically be on the balcony and scraping in the pot plant and doing territorial hoots. But aside from that, we see them a lot more. We see them flying around all the time, probably 4 or 5 nights a week, most months of the year. The only time that we actually don't see that is once the chicks have left. But actually this morning, the reason I'm looking around is this morning we actually saw one of the chicks down on the far side there, and we had to use the binoculars, but one of the chicks was on the roof, and as the sun came up, the family, we saw a couple of them fly off back that way. So they all nesting, or they're all roosting there, and obviously going down towards the bottom side of the wetland to feed. And another question from Doris. Didn't it seem that the owls were more out and about last year than this year? Yes, I think it was, but I think it's because of the fact that there were only 2 owls this year. Because in the first year that we had Mama and Papa, she laid 3 eggs, and all 3 eggs hatched. And unfortunately what happened on the 8th day, Mama was letting the chicks, and they were that big at that stage, play on her back by her tail. And they were out in full view, and crows flew around the area. And we didn't see the event happening, but what we imagined and what we surmised happened was Mama must have whipped around to face the crows, and she knocked one of the chicks off the nest and down onto the balcony floor. And there was this tiny little chick, and it was rocking with its eyes closed back and forth next to the balcony nest. And that evening when Potlon Owl left the nest, where she goes onto a rooftop and she stretches her wings, etc., I came out here under the umbrella and I picked that little thing up to put it back in the nest. And I expected to find the other 2 in the nest, and I only ever found 1. And we hunted high and low for that 3rd chick, and we never ever saw it. So unfortunately we think the chick must have been taken by a crow. So in that first year, after that 8th day, there were only 2 chicks. And what we noticed with having only 2 chicks is that they do things a lot closer together, and as soon you will still get the difference of one chick being able to fly, get on the balcony pillar first, get onto the pilot wall first, fly down to the garden first, and then eventually up into the rooftop first. And the second chick is following in its footsteps. But as soon as the second chick leaves, there's very little activity around the balcony. Now the difference in years 2 and last year 3, is having all 3 survive. And I think there's such a big difference in their development between the first one and the third one, that you find that there is a lot more activity running around, and the strength of the first one is shown up because of how weak the third one appears. So last year, Teeny was the baby of the litter, and Jelani was the first one to fly. Indy was the adventurous middle one. And there was a lot more activity because Jelani and Indy were flying perfectly. Teeny was nowhere near flying. So they still came back. They moved around in the evening, but they constantly came back. So that probably is why there was such a difference in the activity around the balcony once they got a bit older this year. Okay, that's really honestly all we have time for, but if you want any other questions answered, please just pop me an email or put a comment on the blog or put a comment on Facebook. And I'll get to you as soon as I can. All right, moving on to the wetland.
We do sincerely believe that the law will take its course and the wetland will be protected as is rightful. What will happen to the wetland from now onwards? There has been when the initial destruction took place, the owner was given a legally binding directive that he would have to